My wife's cousin bragged about his connections at Thanksgiving. When he named his boss, my wife choked on her wine. I just smiled and said, small world. Every Thanksgiving, my wife's family gathered at her grandmother's farmhouse to eat too much and pretend they all liked each other. I'd been the quiet husband for 6 years, nodding politely while various relatives competed over who had the biggest house, the fastest car, the most impressive vacation. But this year, her cousin Derek showed up with a new Rolex and an ego the size of Texas. He spent the first hour name-dropping celebrities he'd almost met and business deals he'd practically closed. My wife kept squeezing my hand under the table, silently begging me to stay calm. I squeezed back. I could handle Derek. What I couldn't handle was what came next. Derek had always treated me like furniture. He'd make comments about my sad little office job and ask when I'd finally get a real career. 6 years of swallowing my pride at every family event. Halfway through the turkey, Derek clinked his glass like he was about to give a toast at the Oscars. I just want everyone to know, he announced, that I've officially made it. Got recruited by the biggest tech firm on the West Coast. My boss personally headhunted me because of my unique skill set. My father-in-law leaned forward, impressed. My mother-in-law clasped her hands together like Derek had just cured cancer. Even my wife's grandmother looked proud, and she'd once called Derek the family disappointment at Christmas dinner. Derek soaked it all in, grinning at me specifically. Not everyone can say they work directly under Victor Ashby. The man's a legend. Built his company from nothing, worth billions. He paused for dramatic effect, staring right at me. Some people push papers their whole lives. Others actually make something of themselves. That's when my wife inhaled her Pinot Noir. She coughed so hard her eyes watered. I patted her back while everyone stared. Derek looked annoyed that his moment had been interrupted. You okay there, Jenna? He asked, with fake concern. My wife couldn't speak. She just looked at me with wide eyes, her hand covering her mouth. Derek rolled his eyes and continued his monologue about Victor Ashby's genius. How the man had revolutionized the industry. How lucky Derek was to be his right-hand man. Victor's very selective, Derek said smugly. He only works with the best. Said I reminded him of himself when he was younger. We grab lunch together almost every week. He confides in me about company strategy. I took a slow sip of my water. Small world, I said quietly. Derek's eyebrows furrowed. What's that supposed to mean? The entire table went silent. Even the kids at the small table stopped throwing mashed potatoes. I pulled out my phone and opened my photos. Victor Ashby? I said, turning the screen toward Derek. You mean this Victor Ashby? The photo showed me and Victor at his daughter's wedding last spring. I was his best man. Derek's face went white. That's my college roommate, I continued calmly. We started our first company together in his garage back in 2008. I was there when he built everything from nothing. I introduced him to his wife at my birthday party. I'm godfather to his kids. My mother-in-law's fork clattered against her plate. My father-in-law's mouth hung open. Derek started stammering. He never mentioned. I scrolled to another photo. Victor and me at a board meeting, both of us in suits, laughing about something. I'm also on his company's board of directors, I added. Have been for 8 years. We meet quarterly to review performance. Your name has never come up, not once. The silence was brutal. Derek's Rolex suddenly looked cheap. His confidence evaporated like steam. I'm sure there's some mistake, he mumbled, but his voice cracked. My wife finally recovered enough to speak. Honey, why didn't you ever tell my family about Victor? I shrugged. You asked me not to talk about work at family events. Said it made people uncomfortable when I mentioned board meetings and investments. I looked directly at Derek. I also remember you calling me boring at your sister's wedding because I don't brag about my job. You told everyone I was a paper pusher with no ambition. Derek's face went from white to crimson. His mother tried desperately to change the subject, asking about dessert options, but nobody was listening anymore. My father-in-law started asking me questions about the tech industry that he'd never bothered asking in 6 years. My mother-in-law suddenly wanted to know all about my investment portfolio. Even grandmother leaned over and whispered, I always knew you were the smart one, dear. The quiet ones usually are. Derek left before dessert, muttering something about an early flight. I got a text from Victor that night asking why some guy named Derek was desperately emailing him, begging to keep his entry-level position in the mailroom.